My personal take on technological advancements is that technological advancements advance the flexibility that you have in exploring alpha. That's how I look at it. If you consider perhaps, we can't really say things like 50 years ago, because 50 years ago technically was not very far back in time. We had like many more years prior. So we should really start getting into the habit of saying, well, 100 years ago, we had inferior technology. And even then, technological advancements have enabled us to have more options in exploring alpha. However, that comes with its challenges in that if the majority of the participants are given additional tools and additional technological ability to go explore alpha, and if this is quite accessible, then you change the dynamics of the system that you're trying to explore that alpha in, because then suddenly you have an influx of equally equipped participants, more or less, who are then able to compete more efficiently for the same alpha. So if I were to summarize in a sentence what goes through my mind when I think technological advancement, it empowers alpha exploration, exploratory research. As technology gets more advanced, so does our ability to advance our methods and means to exploring opportunity in the markets. But it also empowers arbitrage. So I think there's no one answer to that question, but it's certainly a very interesting question, because there are so many different things you can consider when you look back 100 years, as we just said, to technology that existed back then, and how fewer the number of advantaged participants there were compared to today,
Understood.
especially the divide between institutional and retail participants, which has been
Yeah,
closing in ever so closer over time.
that's a really good point about talking about institutional and individual traders. That at the end of the day, ones have, well, at the end of the day, they have more resources on that sense. So having more resources, because it's everything a matter of money. That's the point.
Mm.
I mean, because we all see that there are some other uh, well, we see a lot of information on the internet about algorithmic trading, about how to approach this alpha generation process, how to really get a grasp of what is happening onto the markets. And we just look, and there are a lot of HFT firms, there are a lot of machine learning, a lot of deep learning, and that's also another thing that I wanted to point it out in terms of we are in the era of data. So this is, I guess this is clear to anyone that is or uh, uh, yes, hearing us at this point in time. So just to make a recap on that, I mean, we were talking about the era in which we are actually, and we are talking about there is a lot of data, there is a lot of technology, there is a lot of processing power, but we are tackling with I guess, and I think, and I believe firmly that we are talking in a totally different problem, like others that we may come up actually. So um, that's another big question that we will try to talk about. I mean, uh, are these problems at some point in time unsolvable? It's more data, because you have talked about that. And I really want to grasp a little bit more about you on that sense, in terms of, is data the real answer?
I think I think availability of data and the breadth of that availability incites more intellectual maturity over time. So the more you have to play with, the more options surface. Depends on the context, I suppose, but the more flexibility you have, the better you can approach any given task as a human being. But then, as the breadth and availability of data increases, and hence your exploratory research amplifies, so does so do the number of participants, as I mentioned earlier. if that data is available, is accessible more or less equally amongst those participants in an ideal world, which we know not to be the case. Then I think data isn't just the answer, because the data is useless should the intellectual prowess or ability to tackle in the presence of several other equally equipped participants not exist. You see what I mean? The conclusion, at least my own humble conclusion, is that data alone isn't the solution. A better grasp of how to deal with additional volume of data in the presence of an equally increasing audience as regards as pertains to the number of participants using that data is very important.
It's not the solution, but I believe that it's of great importance onto either of the solutions that you come up with finally,
Mm-hmm.
even if you make money or even if you don't make money. From my side, what I have seen is that it's really important to connect the dots between the fundamentals and the data, not just looking about, because we
Yeah,
are
I
in the
agree.
era of data with processing power and we are able to process a lot of data. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that we are modeling something that changes. Participants, why it changes? That's the question that I guess you as audience are also telling yourselves, like, why it changes?